What is up and what is going on, everybody? Welcome back and welcome into the channel. It's a quick turnaround, but we got to preview the ALCS because it starts tomorrow night, and the Seattle Mariners are just 4 wins away from getting to their first ever World Series. They will have a tough task on their hands against a very good Toronto Blue Jays team. As always, before I go any further, if you can like the video, helps out the channel tremendously. Subscribe if you're new, lurking to the channel. I passed 5,200 subs. Thank you to everybody. Next goal is 5,500. And don't forget to comment your thoughts on the team and this series down below. I want to thank everybody also. Obviously, I would have gone a little bit more into this had the Mariners lost yesterday, but they didn't, so we don't have to yet. Just want to thank all of you for all the support this year. Anybody that's commented, subscribed, liked, or even just watched the video, I truly appreciate it. All the very kind comments on the video last night. Cannot thank you all enough. You are all good people, tremendous. You read some, you go to some videos and you see comment sections and they can be a little iffy. That's not you guys and gals. It's always just super upbeat, positive. Or, obviously when frustration's, there, it's there. But, I've never gotten like personal attacks or anything like that. And that just means a ton to me. And so thank you all so much for all support. We got a long way to go. Got a long way to go this season. So this is not a goodbye. But just wanted to thank all of you so much. And, and how much you all deserve what happened last night for this baseball team. And it's just so cool to be for me to be on this ride with all of you. As much as I know you'll say you're on the ride with me, it's amazing to be on the ride with all of you and getting to, as someone that doesn't live in Washington anymore, I feel like I do again, right? Like I get to be a part of it. I get to be a part of the community, which is just so cool and so special. So thank you to every one of you. You've made this season and all the seasons I've done this, special to me, but this one a little bit more so. All right. ALCS starts tomorrow night. Unlike the ALDS, because of the bye, there's no sitting around waiting. We're getting right to it with one day off tomorrow against a very good Toronto Blue Jays team. And I will never lie to y'all. I thought I was going to go in diving into the Blue Jays a little bit, and I thought I was going to be a little underwhelmed. I think anytime a team kind of overachieves in a season, and if you're a Blue Jays fan watching this, please hear me out on this. It was not a team that was expected, I think, to be certainly not as good as they were. You're in a division where Baltimore had so many good young up-and-coming players and already making the playoffs. The Yankees, the Red Sox, the Rays are always super competitive as well in that division. And Toronto, kind of like the Mariners, right? An offseason where the fans were very frustrated with the team and didn't think they did enough to go all in. So I kind of assumed Toronto was just this team that maybe got lucky a little bit and wasn't as good as their record. But I got to tell you, diving into this team, they're good. They are really good. And what I think is so good about the Blue Jays, there's just not a weakness. I mean, obviously there's things they do better than others, but they are very, very balanced. Offense is outstanding. Starting pitching is good. Even the bullpen, which I think has been maligned a little bit. Again, I'm not dialed into the Jays and their fans and what they necessarily are personally thinking, has some pretty good underlying numbers. So it's going to be a very, very tough task for the Seattle Mariners. But again, that's playoff baseball. The 3 teams besides the Mariners that are left is an outstanding Blue Jays team that won 94 games, the best team in baseball record-wise in the Milwaukee Brewers, and probably the best team talent-wise in baseball in the Los Angeles Dodgers here. And the team the Mariners just played against, the Detroit Tigers, were probably through the first half of the year, if you would have gone to anybody on July 5th and said, who's the best team in baseball, to a poll of 100 people, you'd probably get 50 to 60 answers saying the Detroit Tigers. So there's no easy path here. The Mariners are going to have to play good baseball, just as they did against the Tigers, to advance the World Series, and I absolutely believe the Mariners can do that. One positive out of the way here is that, while I think the Blue Jays are definitely a better, more complete team than the Tigers, the Mariners did just face Tarek Skubal in 40% of the games in a 5-game series. The Blue Jays do not have a Tarek Skubal, and their best pitcher is probably Kevin Gausman. At least it's in a 7-game series. So, facing him twice, if that's how many times you face him, won't be as pivotal as facing Tarek Skubal 2 times as well. I will say this going in, I think there's going to be a narrative for tomorrow's game that the Mariners are going to be short on arms and exhausted, and they may be very tired after the 15-inning game. And the Blue Jays certainly come in with more rest, having wrapped up their series Wednesday, which, that could be something where if the Mariners do end up not winning this series, we could look back and say, hey, maybe if they would have won game 4, they could have set the rotation a little bit more for the Blue Jays. So there could still be some negative impact from not finishing the Tigers series off in 4. It's also hard to be upset when you just won the series as well. But I don't think it's as dire as it's going to be made out to be. One, the Mariners did have a day off today. I mean, think about the regular season, right? How many days off do you get in a regular season? 15 to 17, somewhere in that range. The only time you get back-to-back days off is if there's a delay of any kind or a rain out and the All-Star break. Other than that, you're getting at most one day off, and you still have games where your bullpen in series where your bullpen is taxed heavily. And truthfully, the bullpen didn't really carry that heavy of a workload last night. When I say the bullpen, I mean the bullpen guys. Bizzardo's probably the only one that really you'd love to probably be able to avoid him tomorrow, give him a couple days off after throwing close to 40 pitches, ideally. But I think Brash only threw 20-something. Spire was only out there for a third or two-thirds of an inning and only probably threw 10 to 12 pitches. Munoz, even though an inning and a third, I think was 18 to 20 pitches. And again, day off today. If this was the regular season, and let's just say that was game 3 with those pitch totals, Bizzardo would be the only one that you'd probably be like, that's iffy. The rest of them should all be good to go for game 1. It's really probably the starters that suffered the biggest impact of yesterday's game. Bryce Miller will toe the bump for the Mariners tomorrow night. That's the right call. And listen, you had to use Logan. You had to use Castillo. You had to win that game last night, or there is no game 1 tomorrow. But, and listen, we talked about it after that Tigers-Mariners game. They were all Tigers-Mariners games after game 4. Bryce Miller looked really good. It was just a depressing loss. So it was hard to just focus on that, but Bryce looked solid. The fastball velo stayed at 97 for a few innings. Bryce has had that this season, but it's dipped to 94, 95 in the second inning. The splitter had some good bite. He got, I think, it was either Riley Green or Kerry Carpenter on a really good one there that he struck him out on. Looked like he ran out of gas a little bit in that 5th inning. But he also didn't throw a ton of pitches. I think he threw 56, 57. So I think Bryce should be fine to give you 3 to 5 innings tomorrow. Obviously if the game gets out of hand, you may want to turn it over to Hancock, Vargas, and just, take your lumps a little bit. The goal, I think, for the Mariners needs to be finding a way to win 1 in Toronto here. But I feel pretty good with Bryce going. And then game 2, I think you have Castillo good to go. He only threw 16 pitches last night. So Castillo pitches Sunday, 16 yesterday. I think he could start Monday and give you 5-6 innings potential. I don't think that's crazy. Then you got the day off and you're good to go. And it sounds like Brian Wu will be back on the ALCS roster. I don't know where he'll pitch. Not sure how they want to do that. It's a little bit, got to be guarded that Wu hasn't pitched in about a month. So I don't know what pocket he'll fall into. But we'll obviously have updates on that in the post games or videos when we find out a little bit more. All we know right now is Gausman versus Miller tomorrow night. But I wouldn't just dismiss Bryce going in the game. He looked really good against Detroit on Wednesday there. So that was really encouraging. And I said that in the video. It felt like such a loss. It was hard to focus on that. All right, let's get into the Blue Jays because we're 10 minutes into this video. Offensively for Toronto, 4th in baseball, WRC plus 112 compared to the Mariners 113. So about equal offensively to the Mariners. The Blue Jays do not strike out as an offense. They have the lowest strikeout rate in the league. And by lowest, meaning in a positive way. Only strike out 17.8% of the time. Funny enough, they actually have a fairly solid walk rate. They're 13th in baseball with an 8.4 walk rate. For reference, the Mariners are 8.8. They're 10th in baseball. And again, this is regular season data, just to be clear. That we're still dealing with very small sample in the playoffs. Would you rather have me look at 162 or 5 games for the Mariners and 4 games for the Blue Jays? We're going to look at the larger sample size here. Yeah, that surprises me. Usually, I would expect to see with the Blue Jays with that low of a K rate, a very free swinging team. But they still find a way to work their walks here. That makes them very dangerous. They put the ball in play, but they're still patient when they need to be as well. So I remember the game in Toronto this year, Logan struggled to get through 5. It was kind of an issue for him throughout the year. Remember Wu had to wiggle out of a lot of jams against them. And obviously they swept the Mariners in Seattle. Should get out of the way. The Blue Jays were 4-2 against the Mariners this year. Mariners won the series in Toronto 2 out of 3. Blue Jays swept them in Seattle. I should have let off with that. I apologize. But that's kind of an overall look at the Blue Jays offense. They don't steal either. Not as low as the Tigers. Tigers, I think, entered that series with 61 stolen bases on the year. I believe the Blue Jays are only at 77, so they're one of the lowest steal teams in baseball as well. And it can matter. Tigers had some leadoff guys on in extra innings and, didn't necessarily maybe have a steal there to move a guy over. The Mariners are not great at holding runners on. So it is a weakness for this Mariners pitching staff when guys can get on first, get to second, especially against some of the relievers that struggle with it and even the starters. So it can be a little bit of a hidden weapon for teams, but Detroit and Toronto, probably not the teams that are going to take advantage of that. Some highlights offensively for the Blue Jays. George Springer, fantastic year, probably going to get MVP votes. 166 WRC plus, 399 on base percentage, almost a 400 OBP for George Springer, 560 slugging, and he hit 309. I'm not a big batting average guy, but when you're having that OBP with that slugging and you're hitting for average, that is an absolute total package by George Springer. So a phenomenal offensive season for George Springer. If it weren't for what Cal and Aaron Judge are doing, he might be in the discussion for MVP. Vlad Jr., another incredible season, 137 WRC plus, hit 292, 381 OBP, 467 slugging. Another thing with Vlad, does not strike out a lot. You think big slugger, big strikeout rate is below average and his walk rate is above average. Kind of a microcosm of the Blue Jays offense, right? Doesn't strike out, but can still work his walks. Tough outs there. Now, Springer has a little bit more swing and miss than Vlad Jr. for sure. But those two guys at the top of the lineup are anchoring the lineup. Not anchoring's bad, right? When I said top, I mean they're not necessarily batting 1-2. Maybe they are. I don't know. But top 2 hitters. Bo Bichette may be coming back. We'll find out tomorrow morning when that roster is released. He hasn't played about 3 weeks. You know what? I'll be honest. I don't know what the injury is. I know he was supposed to do some running today. We'll see if Bichette comes back. Now, Bichette is certainly a guy that does not walk. But again, he's hitting 311. His OBP is still good, 357, right? Like Ichiro didn't walk a ton either in 2004, but his on-base percentage was over 400. So there's multiple ways to get on base, right? Like you can do it with average, you can do it with walks or a combination of both. Bichette does it with hits. 43 slugging, 134 WRC plus. Again, the issue, for both, he's not going to walk a lot. And he struggled a bit defensively, at least according to some of the metrics. But we'll see if he's back. That would be a big boost for the Jays. Maybe, a benefit could be for the Mariners if he comes back and he's just not ready to go yet and he's rushed back a little bit. I don't think the Jays will do that, but we saw with Isaac Paredes with Houston when they kind of rushed him back and he just wasn't quite ready. You could tell. So we'll see what they do with Bo Bichette. You got Dalton Varsho, who's been healthy this year, 123 WRC plus, one of the best defensive outfielders in baseball. Alejandro Kirk behind the plate, just like Springer with the MVP talk. If it weren't for what Cal Raleigh and like Will Smith are doing this year, Alejandro Kirk would be easily in the category for one of the best catchers in baseball. Outstanding defensively, 116 WRC plus, 282 average, 348 on base percentage, and a lot of solid role players on this Jays team. Addison Barger, Nathan Lukes, Davis Schneider, Ernie Clement, all guys that contribute. It's a very balanced lineup. You've got Pop in there, Springer, Vlad. You've got just pesky hitters that will not make a lot of outs or quick or, blow them away type outs where 3-pitch strikeouts, they're done. Very pesky team. There's going to be some annoying hits this series. Be ready for it. But just very, very solid. Now, if Bo Bichette doesn't play, Andres Jimenez, who's been playing there, has been very bad this year. Anthony Santander, their big free agent signing, he's been playing this postseason. He has been awful. So those are a couple guys that have been really, really struggling offensively for the Blue Jays. So obviously we never wish for any injuries on this, but if Bo Bichette wants to, I would say take another week, but hopefully the Mariners win the series, that another week doesn't matter. So I guess if Bo Bichette just wants to take it easy at 2026, I will not question that too much for Mr. Bichette. So very good, very balanced offensive team. Not a lot of weaknesses, right, for the Jays. I would assume, and I didn't look it up, I'm assuming their BABIP might be a little high. So maybe, sometimes what you can get with some of these teams that don't strike out a ton, even though the Blue Jays do have a pretty solid walk rate, maybe get them just roll over a few pitches quickly, get some quick outs there potentially from that, and get it done there. So, and the Mariners pitchers certainly capable of doing that. Pitching wise for the Blue Jays, they were 19th in ERA, 4.19 ERA. Expected ERA, they were 22nd. FIP, they were 22nd. Now, again, that's everything throughout the year. That can include some very poor performances from guys that aren't going to pitch in the postseason. So it's not the best snapshot there to necessarily just look at that because, like there's going to be certain guys that have bad numbers that are not going to be a part of this series. They were 5th in K per nine and 16th in walks per nine. Looks like the bullpen may have some guys that struggle with walks a little bit for the Jays. Mariners, good at walking. They're 10th in baseball in walk rate. They can work the count and get on base. That may be something to take advantage of against the Jays bullpen a little bit. Kevin Gausman, who will start game one, above average strikeout rate, 24.4. I'm not sure where the league average fell. I know last year I think it was at like 21.5. So I'm assuming it's going to be pretty close to that. So above average strikeout rate, walk rate, average, I think about 8. He's at 6.5. So Gausman, just an above average pitcher, heavy sinker, ground ball guy. Very solid, just a definition of a workhorse solid pitcher, a guy the Mariners were interested in when he signed with the Blue Jays. I think he was with the Giants before he signed with the Jays. So an outstanding pitcher, just a solid workhorse guy, 3.59 ERA, 3.77 FIP for Gausman on the year. Trey Savage, the rookie who pitched game 2 against the Yankees and was phenomenal. 5 1/3 no-hit innings. And it wasn't a fake no-hitter. What I mean by fake no-hitter, you see those ones where guys go 5 innings, 5 walks, 2 Ks. Like, no, that doesn't move the needle for me when you do that. That's not what Savage did. He was 5 1/3 no hits, 1 walk, 11 strikeouts against a very good New York Yankees lineup. Likely, I think we'll see him game 2 and probably Shane Bieber game 3. Now Savage didn't pitch a lot this season, and the Mariners have not seen him yet. So, maybe rookie, tough spot in the ALCS. It seems like something the Mariners have struggled with a little bit in the past, but maybe second time, going here in the playoffs, Mariners have some video on him and could take advantage of a young pitcher making, I think he's only made a handful of starts this year. It's very low, the total starts he's had. Shane Bieber's only pitched 40 innings this year, 3.57 ERA, came over from Cleveland at the trade deadline. Nice little addition for the Jays that needed some pitching depth. They also have Max Scherzer. I'm not sure if he'll be on the roster. Chris Bassett was not on the last roster, I think, or the ALDS roster. I believe he was hurt. Not sure if he's coming back, but he had a 22% K percentage and a 7% walk rate. So about average strikeouts, a little bit below average walks. Just kind of another solid guy, right? Middle of the rotation starter. 3.96 ERA for Bassett. Jose Barrios, again, he wasn't on the ALDS roster. Not sure, again, in the CS if he'll be there. Not great, 4.17 ERA, 19% K rate, 8% walk rate, so just pretty average across the board. Listen, the plus there is no Tarek Skubal that you're going to face. Now the Mariners beat Skubal, won the Skubal game both times, I should say. It's probably a better way to word it. So it's not like that's something necessarily hurt the Mariners, but you did face probably the best pitcher in baseball for 40% of the games in the ALDS. The Blue Jays have some dudes. Savage looks outstanding. Gausman is solid. This is a good pitching staff, but they do not have a Tarek Skubal type. There's nobody that I'm going to go into the series and go, man, if you can just get 1 run off this guy in 7 innings. It's not to say Gausman can't pitch like that. He's obviously capable, but my expectations are going to be much higher against the Blue Jays staff than they were against a Tarek Skubal. And I'm sure the Mariners' offensive numbers don't look that great in the ALDS because of Skubal, but they were fine against Flaherty. I actually thought they were fine in game 4 against Mize. I think they would have gotten another run off of him in the bullpen. They were at 3 through 5, then the Tigers just kind of ambushed them. They did struggle with Melton a little bit in game 1, but got a couple runs off the bullpen in game 1. So, I think for the most part, the Mariners offense was fine in the ALDS. It was just a little bit of facing the best pitcher in baseball for 2 times. Bullpen for the Jays. Again, I'm not dialed into the Toronto scene, so if you're a Blue Jays fan and you can educate me on it, please do. But I think the bullpen's been a little maligned. Again, though, some of the underlying data pretty good. They've got some dudes out there. Louis Varland is the guy I really liked that was on the Twins for most of the year, acquired at the deadline. Well above average strikeout rate at 28.3. Little high in the walks. It's going to be kind of a theme with the Blue Jays bullpen, and maybe where the Mariners can take advantage. I think they've given up some home runs as well. So it may be a spot where the Mariners can kind of wear down a starter, kind of similar to what they did in 22. I know different rosters, but they got Gosman out of there at 5 1/3 or 5 2/3, and were able to take advantage of the bullpen there. But Varland, a little bit of a high ERA, 4.94, but FIP at 3.56, so he's been better than his ERA would lead you to believe. Jeff Hoffman is their closer. Very good K rate, 29.3. A little bit high in the walk rate, 9.4. 4.3, I can't even read my own handwriting, ERA, and a 4.9 FIP. So I think home runs have been a problem for Hoffman as well. But the stuff is good, right? Like, here's the thing, like strikeout and walk ratio are so important because it's the two things pitchers have the most control over. And Hoffman can miss bats, and he doesn't put a lot of guys on. So still a solid arm, right? While he's had some issues and you can get to him, like he's also not garbage at the back end there either. Some lefties for the Jays. You've got like Mason Fluharty, Eric Lauer, and Brandon Little's been their main one. Little insane strikeout rate, 31, but the walks are high, 15% walk rate. Does have a 3.03 ERA and a 2.92 FIP. Fluharty, again, good strikeouts, little high in the walk rate. Lauer, good strikeouts, and he's low on the walk rate. I'm not sure where Lauer's been fitting in. He pitched, was that game 3 or game 4? I don't remember which one he pitched in. But kind of a theme, right? The Jays bullpen looks like it misses some bats, but also gives up some walks. I think they've had some home run issues as well. So, again, Blue Jays just very solid across the board. The definition of just a really solid, well-rounded baseball team. I would say they're the definition of team that probably does not beat themselves a lot. Very pesky team. The Guardians on steroids would maybe be a good way to refer to the Toronto Blue Jays. Kind of a similar team, but actually good offensively and not complete garbage like Cleveland is offensively. It's going to be very tough for the Mariners. And unfortunately with, having to use Logan and Castillo, you are a little thin on the rotation side. The good news is it's a best of 7, not best of 5. So, I mean, if you can win one in Toronto to the next 2, you're in great position here. And then you go home and you're going to be able to set that rotation a little bit with Kirby, Logan, maybe even Brian Wu, which I think should give you a starting pitching advantage in most of the games you're playing. So really the first 2 games are going to be attrition. It's going to be just finding a way to grind out a W here. You're probably going to be the underdog in both these first 2 games, finding a way to win one. If you can do that, you're set up very, very well here, to beat the Blue Jays. And if from a Blue Jays perspective, I'd probably say the Mariners' ability to hit the home run is going to be something they're going to have to be wary of. The Mariners will be patient, take their walks, something the bullpen has struggled with. I think a key for the Jays will be, and you saw in game 2, their bullpen really struggled even with a huge lead in that game. So I think the key for the Jays, and again, Jays fans can correct me, please do. Length from the starters, I think, will actually be very important for them, probably more so than the Mariners. Obviously, 7-game series, you want a little bit of length from your starters just because it could go so long here. But I think that's going to be a real key from the Toronto Blue Jays. Can Gosman go deep into the games and Yasevich and everything like that? Can they get you 6 innings each time out? If the Mariners can get them out after 5, you feel pretty good here. I do think the pressure is more on Toronto for tomorrow, to be perfectly honest, for game 1. Because if they lose Bryce Miller versus Kevin Gosman, that's a big loss for them. Now they're feeling the pressure of a must-win game 2, where the Mariners are playing a little bit with house money. I don't think you're ever playing fully with house money in a playoff series. Even if you're up 3-0 in a series, I don't think you're doing that. But it would put a lot of pressure on the Jays to almost have to win game 2. Because remember, 2-3-2 for the CS. So if the Jays happen to drop both games at home, then they go to Seattle having to win, 2 games to just get it back to Toronto with a chance. So I do think there is a little bit more pressure on the Jays tomorrow. I expect the Mariners to play a little looser, actually. I think being the favorites against the Tigers had them playing a little tighter. I think you're going to see on the road this team play a little looser. I kind of like starting out on the road because you feel like any win you get here in these first 2 is kind of stealing one. And if the Mariners can get one, there is a chance they can close this series out at home in the next 3 games. It would require you to only win 1 in Toronto, win all 3 at home, but it's possible. So Mariners just have to find a way to get 1 here. Now, if you don't, you go down 0-2. Series is far from over, but it does mean you'd have to win it in Toronto if you wanted to advance, which is possible. Toronto's played very well at home. Very similar vibe there to me to T-Mobile. Crowd that's very passionate. To me, those were the loudest 2 crowds in the DSs that I saw. So it's going to be a very raucous crowd there. They've played very well against the Yankees, but I think you're going to get a much different test from a Seattle Mariners team here that I think is a lot more gritty than the New York Yankees. I think the Yankees are talented baseball team. Certainly wasn't looking forward to playing games in the stadium in the playoffs, but I think they roll over a little bit more. You're not going to get that from the Seattle Mariners. I think 2022 will factor in for the Blue Jays wanting a little bit of revenge. Now those things only carry you so far, but I think that'll definitely be a factor. I think the Jays will definitely want to come out and start hot for sure. But I do think there is more pressure on Toronto tomorrow. Home field advantage and pitching matchup advantage. Again, it's not take away from Bryce, who was fantastic in Detroit Game 4, but on paper, Gausman is the better pitcher here. So if Bryce can dial in and do what he did against the Tigers, the Mariners pitchers, again, throw a lot of strikes, which could lead to some quick outs from a non-strikeout team in the Jays because they know the Mariners aren't going to walk them. So even though that walk rate is solid, like the Mariners just don't walk a lot of hitters. So you may get some quick swings. You may get some quick outs. Could also mean the Blue Jays get some quick runs as well. You could get first to third very quickly. You know what? Let me check one other thing. I don't think the Jays hit a ton of home runs. I don't know why I didn't look at that either. Let me pull that up real quick. Nervous to pull it. Every time I pull up Fangraphs, my videos crash. I don't know why, but let's see. Why did I not look at that? That's stupid of me. There you go. You're getting it live and in person here. Mariners were third in home runs. The Blue Jays were... they were 13th. I got a little bit more than I thought. And that's very well-rounded offense. I swear I looked at it a while ago and they were very low in home runs. I think they're a good defensive team too as well. Like Kirk's really good, Varsho. So yeah, they're 13th in home runs. They're tied with Minnesota and Baltimore. So 191, they can hit it. Mariners 238, certainly a little bit more power. But Yankees 274, and they were able to hold them down there and get it done. So definitely 2 teams I think are very similar in the sense of you are not going to see either of these 2 teams quit in this series. Neither of these are rollover teams that are going to go away and die. So, be stupid for me to give a prediction because, of course, I think the Seattle Mariners are going to win it. I do think the Mariners have a little bit more of the star power, at top. I think the lineup's a little bit, has a little bit more thump to it. I like the Mariners pitching with how good it's been the last couple months, but I'm a Mariners fan. So, I'm not going to predict them to lose the dang ALCS. Like, we've made it this far. Why would I predict them to lose now? But definitely going to be a tough task here against a very, very good Toronto Blue Jays team. Boy, if you can win tomorrow night, that is a huge step in the right direction. And if you're on edge, not sure if you're kind of favoring the Jays, I think if the Mariners can win tomorrow, I think that does turn the series a little bit. Doesn't mean it's over if the Mariners lose by any means, but definitely set yourself up on the right path. So enjoy the series. I'll be here for the post game tomorrow night. Love y'all. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. It's go time. It's ALCS time. Go Mariners. Peace.